Welcome to RP Gibberish, the podcast where fantasies are never final. And with me, as always, is the Grandmaster himself, Aerodynamish. How you going?
Hey, good afternoon, good morning for everybody listening. It's going to be a great episode.
Originally, we were only going to cover one series, but recently there was a event that covered one of our favorite series, so we're actually going to start with that. Of course, that series is Fire Emblem. Nintendo recently had a direct where they talked about various releases in the Nintendo world, and the one that caught both our eyes is all the news surrounding the Fire Emblem series. Now, first, Arrow is going to touch upon a game that we consider to be vaporware for the longest time, and they came forth and finally breathed some new life to it. So, go for it, Arrow.
So yeah, we finally, in the last Nintendo Direct, we finally saw that Shin Megami Tensei Crossfire Emblem, which has been retitled into Genei Inbunroki Sharp Fire Emblem, which literally or something translates like Illusory Revelations Sharp Fire Emblem. It is a mind-blowing title, but I'm just calling it Sharp FE. Good luck typing that, by the way, on Facebook and stuff, because it will automatically hashtag everything. Very annoying. But it is Shin Megami Tensei versus Fire Emblem, and I think the general consensus, at least this is also how I feel a little bit more about it. At first, I was shocked. I could not believe what I was seeing. It looked very, very much different than what I had anticipated. As it is not really Shin Megami Tensei, it feels a little bit more on the Persona side and the light-hearted anime-esque high school character side. And also the trailer, it had some interesting, well, I would say, gameplay mechanics. A lot of people thought it was going to be more like an arena fighter, but I've been rewatching the trailer a couple of times, like 2 or 3 times, and pausing it, looking in depth at the screens. And actually, with the more I watched it, the more excited I became, because it does indeed look like a Persona-esque spin-off where Atlas is in full control and they are just integrating some of the Fire Emblem elements. Now, they already mentioned that they will talk a little bit more about the actual Fire Emblem inspirations at a later date. Of course, you did see the very... It seems like the characters are able to transform into Fire Emblem characters. So, Pegasus Knights, there was this one girl who transformed into a Pegasus Knight, soaring through the skies in Shibuya and attacking these demons. And it also looks the way in these arenas where they're actually fighting, that they are attacking these these huge bosses, and that they are in Fire Emblem attire, probably something to do with classes. Which it looks very interesting. There's also some dungeon exploration, some town exploration, and as usual, I am very excited to see Tokyo and especially Shibuya. The first thing I thought was The World Ends With You and Devil Survivors, to see that into play as well. It's at first I was shocked because I had a little bit of a different view on it, which we'll probably dabble on a little bit soon. But I'm very excited for it. It looks like a nice companion piece to Persona. Of course, the fact that it is Fire Emblem will make sense that it's on the Wii U, but this could have been a game that could have been on the PS4, could have been on the Wii U, on the PS Vita. But it's because of the Fire Emblem property, of course. So, yeah, we'll have to wait. It's supposed to come out in winter of 2015 in Japan, and then I would guess somewhere-ish Q2 2016 if there's no more delays here in the West. So that's also a good thing. This game is already approved for the West, which is something that I really like, that Nintendo is taking this risk. But at the moment they need it, and I'm not going to get into a whole Wii U talk what they need, but this is pretty much the only game together with Zelda why I'm keeping my Wii U around, because I'm kind of excited for these exclusives. But that's all my initial first thoughts. Greg, what are your thoughts on Sharp FE trailer?
Well, it's really funny because I seem to be the only person going around just calling it Illusory Revelations because I just think that's a kick-ass name for an RPG series. I mean, it doesn't even need to be tied to both Fire Emblem or Shin Megami Tensei. Just call it that. I was like, oh man, I'd buy that in a heartbeat. Um, a lot of people have been misinterpreting what I've been saying lately on my videos and different sort of messages between friends. I'm actually looking forward to this game as kind of like a standalone RPG and not really banking on any of the connections towards Fire Emblem and Shin Megami Tensei. But as I said before, I think the same. I think this looks like a Persona game. And I noticed that Atlas has taken this liking to making people that surround the player like non-existent, but their silhouettes are being known in reality. Like in the Persona 5 trailer, no one had any faces. In this, they're multicolored silhouettes to give the impression, yes, you're in a lively city, but it's just so otherworldly, and it just shows Atlas's distinct style. It just looks amazing. It is extraordinarily colorful. The designs of the demons and the bosses scream Shin Megami Tensei and Persona, and they look amazing. Now, the only Fire Emblem connection I can make from watching the trailer is indeed the characters will transform into different classes. As I already said before, one of the girls transforms into a Pegasus Knight, one of them transformed into a dancer. It could have been the same character that transformed into two different classes. And then I saw a male character in one of the artwork, he transforms into a Lord character. So people saying that they will transform from certain Fire Emblem characters, but we don't know if they're the actual characters or just the classes that the series is known for. Honestly, I'd be happy if they just stuck with the classes and the different sort of races. I'm sure along the way they'll have some ties to the Fire Emblem because they kind of need it. Because as I said in my video, the less they bank on have connections to the Fire Emblem series, the less they should call it a Fire Emblem game. They should just drop it. And I don't think that's a big deal, honestly. If people make it out to be like that's an insult, it's not. I'm just stating the facts, you know? Yeah, that started off as the Shin Megami Tensei X Fire Emblem collaboration, but along the way it became something new. You know, if they admit that, awesome, you know? But if it is a game in the later sort of directs and information pieces, and we do get information that has more Fire Emblem elements, then yeah, sure, keep the name. I'm going to say this now. If they do actually have the Fire Emblem itself, because don't forget to anyone like me and Arrow, there's a lot of Fire Emblem games where the Fire Emblem is actually in the game and it plays a crucial part of the story. So if there is like a part in the game where they do need the Fire Emblem, then yeah, it becomes a Fire Emblem game, sure enough.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But as a unique Persona-looking RPG for the Wii U, I'm excited. I'm definitely going to get it. But the one thing, I watched the trailer again before the recording, and I didn't realize that the Pegasus that the girl character was riding had motors and all that shit. That I thought that was such a cool design.
I've not picked up on that one, but that you know, it looks and it shows. I was actually thinking about it. It actually shows in the title, Illusory Revelations. It seems that they are in some sort of parallel dimension or like some hidden world, kind of like Persona 4, where if you put on the glasses you will see the shadows and stuff in the Midnight Channel. But it seems like there's like a parallel universe going on in Tokyo, and that they can go into these fights. And I have a feeling that it will be very lighthearted in terms of character development. That shows from the colorfulness of the characters, and then it will get a little bit more dark when they turn into, you know, these Fire Emblem characters. And I'm sure that there's some evil organization or maybe even some evil empire from Fire Emblem leaking into real life. And I'm very excited for it. It looks, like I already mentioned, it looks like a great companion piece to Persona 5. Kind of, you know, working well hand in hand together. I would just wish for... I think it's... I don't know what was your original idea? What were you expecting from Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem?
Well, originally I thought it was going to be a strategy RPG where you fight. The enemies would be demons from the Shin Megami Tensei series. I didn't think that they were going to use actual characters from both series. I thought it was going to be a brand new set of characters, but they would be fighting the already established demons from the series. That was just my initial reaction.
Yeah,
to when I saw the announcement.
yeah. No, I share the same thought. I was going to feel that this was going to be a Devil Survivor slash Fire Emblem strategy RPG, where it is this very distinct post-apocalyptic setting, but just in a Fire Emblem universe. So there was indeed this Fire Emblem Empire thrown in the mix in this epic war between two sides, maybe with recurring characters, maybe with new characters, and then all hell breaks loose, and it's demons. Then they have to fight against demons some strange way, maybe through their weapons. They can have, like in Devil Survivor, have your main character and then have two demons on the side that actually fight for you, like the demon summoning program in Devil Survivor. That was my original idea. So very distinct Fire Emblem art style, um, and characters, but all thrown in with the personas and the Cathedral of Shadows and just strategy RPG, what they do best. And I am a little bit disappointed that that original vision did not come out, because this is also what I'm looking at the upcoming, say, Atlas library, and it is Persona 4 Dancing All Night, and it's Persona 5, and it is Illusory Revelations, which are all very charming and anime-esque. And then you have Etrian Odyssey 5 coming out. I'm all talking about the Japanese games, of course. But where is, and I know it came out in 2013, but where is a new, no, I'm not even counting Record Breaker, because that is also it's moving more towards anime, but where is my new, very dark, post-apocalyptic, I would say, Strange Journey, Digital Devil Saga, Shin Megami Tensei 4 game in the pipeline from Atlas? And so, like I mentioned, I was a little bit disappointed, but this is by far, by far, my most anticipated Wii U game, and it's I have a feeling, because I have not played too many games on it, without even having played it, this will be my Wii U game of the system.
I will say this now. The big thing that will make Illusionary Revelations succeed is if they, like Persona 4, they can take the light-hearted moments and meld them nicely with the dark moments. Because that's why Persona 4 was perfect. You had this team come together because of this mass murder on the loose. So even though there was this light-hearted moments, they're stuck in this situation that is very grim. If they can deal with this in Illusionary Revelations, they've got another hit on their hands.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's I think we'll have to wait and see. I think it's very ambitious from Atlas, to release this in the winter 2015, which on the one hand bodes well for the release of Persona 5. If it doesn't get delayed, that means that it will come out. They can't release it in the same month in Japan, so it means that Persona 5 will come out maybe Q3, maybe September, Octoberish, and then this will come out maybe January, February. So I know that different teams are working on it, but still, it's a big shot for Atlas. And I would say the final thing I would like to say is I don't think Intelligent Systems is actively working on this.
No, I'm going to lead into that right now.
Yeah, they have other things on their hands.
Yes, basically in the interview with Illusionary Revelations is originally they were going to work together to create a project, but rumors saying that it didn't actually work out that well. I'm not too sure if this is fact, but along the way, Nintendo just decided to give Atlas free reign, because Atlas pretty much said to Nintendo, if we wanted another strategy RPG Fire Emblem, it's best if just Intelligent Systems work on it. And they are, in the form of the next 3DS Fire Emblem game, Fire Emblem If. And I'm going to say this now. Ero's enthusiasm for Sharp FE as he says that he, from just watching the trailer, is thinking that that game is going to be his favorite on the Wii U. I have the exact same feeling for Fire Emblem If on the 3DS. I reckon this is going to be my favorite game on the handheld. This is Fire Emblem at its best. Agon is like fighting the undead, and now you've got a epic war against two kingdoms. And I really like the design of these two kingdoms. You've got the peace-loving samurai clan, the Hoshino, and then you've got kind of like the dark, sort of gritty empire of Nor. And they're at each other. But in this piece of news that may blew my mind is the fact that as the main character, you have to choose your allegiances. Now, originally, this is where it gets a bit opinions differ because on one hand, I'm really excited. On the other hand, it's kind of a cop out. But today, I actually found out that the game in Japan, at least, will be released in two separate versions, like the Pokemon series. Like one version will be you aligning with the Hoshino clan, and the other version is going to be the Nor Empire. So you've got the White Kingdom version and the Black Kingdom version. Now, I'm going to say this now. As someone who loves, like, gets joy from collecting Fire Emblem stuff, Nintendo just gave me two games at once. And I saw the cover art today. Oh my God, they are beautiful.
Oh yeah.
So the Fire Emblem collector in me is extremely happy. The gamer in me, however, is taking this stance, and this is what I'm going to say. If both versions are not that different, then it's a waste of money. If they are extraordinarily different and it becomes two different games, then that's Nintendo giving you two Fire Emblem games at once. How awesome is that? Now, I actually got the news today that up until Chapter 6,
Yes.
both versions will be the same. Once you get to Chapter 6, that's when the paths will diverge.
Yeah, I was going to
So-
mention that. I didn't know you were already aware of that, but I read that as well. That the game will play out. It's kind of typical of our Fire Emblem. It's basically getting through the tutorial, getting through the prologue, setting up the world, and from what I believe I've heard is that you are playing as this Hoshino it's Hoshino.
Yes.
You're playing as this originally born in Hoshino, but you're either spirited away, kidnapped for some reason, and you live now in the Nor Empire. And then everything comes down, and you see in the trailer already, you see these two warring nations, like the main characters from each group, saying, "No, you got to choose us. You got to choose for us." And that's when Chapter 6 happens, I think.
Well, as a fan of samurai culture at a very young age, I can tell you this now. In the wars in medieval Japan, to have alliances, samurai lords would give their children as tribute, and to make sure that there's peace between the clans. And like whoever was the most powerful, they would give their sons to the other lord if he was more powerful, because they think that he would have a much better standing. And I think that's exactly what's happened here. The Hoshino must have done a deal with them, and they gave their son or daughter, depending on who you choose. I know there's a big thing that Arrow's excited for.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So this is I'm excited, and I'm a big Fire Emblem fan, and I know a lot of Fire Emblem fans that are really iffy because one, a lot of people like the Lord characters have always been a very prominent sort of famous character that exists for the ages. So this is the very first Fire Emblem game where you play choose your own character. And that sort of rubbed people the wrong way, but I've already said this once, I'll say it again. If you have a silent protagonist, that just means that the characters around him just have to be that more memorable, that bit better, and to complement him or her. So
I actually don't think that it's going to be a silent protagonist from the way they set it up.
no,
It's just that you can choose which gender you have, but they will play a main speaking role in it. I would guess.
well, I saw the trailer, and yeah, the character was speaking in Japanese, and I was like, okay, so you're right about that.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of data, man. That means an actor and an actress has to say the same line. Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Mass Effect, I would say.
Yeah, you just wonder how much space is on that card. So
Yeah, that is because the animated cutscenes looked absolutely gorgeous. I know that they
Yeah.
would be compressed and stuff, but I had a feeling if I was looking at a Wii U title, but then of course you do see the in-game graphics, which seem to resemble Awakening. But
Yeah.
you guys know me. I think it will be. It is very easy. I'm going to pick, of course, the female character. That is like an easy choice, but I am very excited for it in the sense that one of my most disappointing things from both Fire Emblem 12, which was New Mystery of the Emblem, as well as Awakening, which were the first two games that had a avatar character, make your own character, it never really contributed all that much to the plot. Like in Awakening, you still have Chrom going on, and in New Mystery of the Emblem, you still have Marth going on. So I am very
Yeah.
excited to have this. And that the best thing about this all, if it's indeed two different games, then I will just play the Fire Emblem a female character for Hoshino, and then I'll play the male character again for the Nor part. So switch it up.
Now, this is where it actually gets really cool for anyone who doesn't want to buy both versions. They're doing a deal in Japan, at least. They're probably going to do this for America. Actually, I don't know what the plans for America and Europe is. But whoever buys one version can download the other version at a much reduced price. Like, I think the carts back there in Japan is about 4,700 yen, which roughly is about $50. If you buy one of them, you can download the other version from the eShop for about 1,700 yen. So that's really good. So you'd be able to experience both games at like roughly the same price as a big one. Now, a lot of fans would be a bit upset because in the older Fire Emblem games like Reiko no Ken, you had the tutorial story with Lyn, you had the main story with Elowood, but when you actually beat the game, you had an extra post-content storyline with Hector, playing as Hector during the events of Elowood's story, but with different battles. And then you had, like, say, the Sacred Stones, where you can choose either Princess Erika or Prince Ephraim. So a lot of people get that mindset that, hey, this should have been packaged into the one game, but if Nintendo needs to make more money, I guess there's kind of worse ways they could do it. I reckon this is awesome, and I think the way that this is going to succeed is content. If both games house a great quantity of different content, then I would consider them two different games, even though they'll have the same characters in different situations. I think that would be amazing. And as a Fire Emblem collector as me, I'm over the moon to get two Fire Emblem games. Even if it's the one story, I reckon it's amazing beyond words.
How I envision it is, yes, indeed, up until Chapter 6, everything will be the same. And just quickly, what I read is they actually doing this thing in Japan where if you buy the digital version, you just buy the digital version, you download it, and you can play up to Chapter 6. And once you make your decision whether you go to the light mode or the dark mode, so Hoshino or Nor, then it will lock your entire digital purchase into that route, which I think is a pretty interesting aspect. You just have to make sure that you make the right decision, otherwise you'll have to buy the DLC pack as well.
This is the thing that they've warned everyone is Hoshino is actually going to be easier and Nor is going to be a more difficult game. So
yeah, that as well.
So that's interesting within itself. So, of course, with that in mind, a lot of newcomers and a lot of people want to ease into the If saga will probably play Hoshino first. And if they feel content and they want to continue on with more of a challenge, they'll go over to Nor. Now, this is the thing I've heard, and I haven't confirmed this. Apparently, there's going to be a third storyline.
There is.
Afterwards. And
no, it's not afterwards. At least from what I've read, it is going to be... Hoshino is going to be where you pick and align yourself with Hoshino. You have the decision to align yourself with Nor, and then the third one, which will get released after the launch in Japan at least, it will be the neutral route where you don't align yourself with anybody, thus stealing full circle Shin Megami Tensei.
That would be interesting if that's the case, because I was really worried if they were gonna pull like true ending bullshit, but at the same time, if it comes with an entire sort of route that leads to a true ending, that I don't mind. So.
Yeah, I have a feeling that you have the Hoshino and the North side fighting, but then you have this blue-haired dancer character. I think she's very important. I don't know if you've seen the art piece where you actually have the cover art for Nor and Hoshino, and then there's actually one where there's both together, and then in the middle is this dancer character. So I have a feeling you will side with her and then, try to fight off both, which will lead to pretty much where we have Atlas doing a Illusory Revelations with some Fire Emblem elements. Now here we have an Intelligent Systems Fire Emblem game that is actually using the sort of chaos law and neutral route from Shin Megami Tensei Fair. So I have a feeling that they're inspired by each other and they're trying to work that into the games. And I'm pretty excited for, it seems to be a lot of content. It seems to be, usually Fire Emblem games are about 20, 24 acts strong, so that means the first 25%, it's the same for all 3 routes, and then you will have, I would say maybe the middle arc, the middle 12 acts will be this, I would say the same for both, but you'll just play on opposite sides. But of course, they will be, you will be on Hoshino's side, you'll fight off against the Nor, and vice versa. You will do sort of the same missions, like trying to invade or trying to instead of invading, you're protecting. And then, of course, because you win and get stronger from the other side, then the last arc will be completely different, where you will either go into Hoshino if you're Nor and fight them off, or if you're Hoshino, you'll go into Nor, and then the whole game changes. And then the third route, I think, will be the most different.
The other thing that they allude to that I kind of listened to very wholeheartedly, they said when you pick the North side, you also have to deal with internal struggles within the kingdom. So I'm like, oh, okay, as well. So that's kind of more enticing to play Nor as well, because you've got to fight sort of, I would say, corrupt nobles within the empire or corrupt generals and all that. So it's like, that sounds like it's, even though I reckon both storylines are going to be awesome, that sounds really intriguing. So... Now, the gamer, like the solid gamer in me, if I was just a pure gamer, I'd just buy one version and download the other content. But as Fire Emblem is one of my favorite series of all time, I would not mind if they bring over the 2 versions to the rest of the world. I'd buy both versions. Someone said, there's rumors going around that they only want to bring out one version in the rest of the world, but that's not confirmed yet.
No, I don't think so. They already showed the trailer where you have to choose. I think what is going to happen is we have indeed in Japan, we have the 2 versions split up, and they already mentioned that everything will be DLC, but there is going to be a packaged retail version of all 3 scenarios at a later stage. So because the game will take a while to get localized, and it's already coming out, the first 2 scenarios are coming out in June in Japan, and then maybe the 3rd scenario comes out somewhere in September or October. And then they'll do a package release as well. Because it will take a while before the game is actually localized, what I am expecting is that the game will be more expensive and has at least the first 2 routes in one package. And then have the 3rd one as available as DLC. I really don't think that they'll give up the opportunity to make a lot of money by just giving one through all 3 in one package. I think they'll do something. It might even be the black and white version, or maybe even change it up that if you buy the white version, you will get the white version and the 3rd scenario, and then if you buy Nor, you will get Nor so that you will always get 2 scenarios for the price of 1. That might even be a better idea, I would say. But we'll have to wait and see in the upcoming E3 and directs what type of direction they're going to use for localization. I do believe that we'll get everything, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they did release 2 versions separately. Well, they already know that they have a huge market for Pokemon series. Nintendo fans, they would think that the Nintendo fans would automatically recognize, oh my god, it's like Pokemon, 2 different versions. And because that's a big market across the world, and I'm excited. I reckon this is extremely awesome, and even if this was to be a continuing franchise, like to play as 2 opposite sides, that's amazing. I don't see any problem with that at all.
I'm actually very excited for this as well. I have a small list of games that I know are coming out in 2016 and later, and this is amongst my top 5. I would actually say, if I look at those titles, which are Zelda U, Danganronpa 3, Quantum Break, Sharp FE, I would actually say that Fire Emblem If is probably for now my 2nd favorite or most hyped game for 2016. Danganronpa 3 is of course number 1, but I am very excited for this game. It looks like a great RPG for the 3DS, and as much as I loved Awakening, I have a feeling this one will blow it out of the water. And you already mentioned that there's no Risen anymore. I'm actually welcoming that as well. It never bothered me playing Awakening, but looking back on it, it doesn't really fit Fire Emblem. So I have a feeling that this will be a fantastic, fantastic game for the 3DS. It is confirmed that it is just a 3DS game, so you don't need to buy a new 3DS, which is good. It will probably just run a lot smoother. And I'm hoping that there will be a Fire Emblem, all 3 scenarios, super special mega bundle where it's like the 3DS XL, left side you have the Hoshino, right side you have the more on the 3DS. And that is when I'll buy a new 3DS XL, either from North America or from Europe. Not Japan, because I want to upgrade to a playable 3DS. But
just make sure to get it in day one, because my goodness, as much as we're excited for all these Nintendo games, Nintendo needs to really get a hold of this madness.
Oh yeah, no, it's that's the whole collecting, and especially due to the amiibos, which I finally got a Ness and Lucina pre-order in from this very obscure small little store. I have no idea. I am not really into amiibo collecting. I just want Fire Emblem characters and Earthbound.
I actually got lucky with. I kind of gave up on amiibos, but I went into a local game store and I was really shocked that they had a Zelda amiibo there, because they were rumored to be discontinued, and I didn't even think twice about not buying her.
Yeah.
But because I am setting up, because it's funny with. I said to myself a long time ago that I want to set up. This year, I've already set up my Dragon Quest shrine, and the Fire Emblem shrine is next. And just as I'm thinking about how to do this, Nintendo just gives me all this stuff that now I'm constantly thinking about. Because other than having these 2 games, they also announced the trading card game, Fire Emblem Cypher. And I don't play trading card games anymore. I used to play a lot of them as a kid. However, as someone who loves art, essentially I'm getting these really nice pieces of art. And it's all the Fire Emblem characters drawn wonderfully. And I've decided I'm probably going to buy them and just put them in a folder and keep them next to my art books. So
that would be nice. I know that Japan is very into these card games. I have a couple for Final Fantasy as well, which I thought were not very good in terms of art, but I think it's nice. I think it's nice that Nintendo is acknowledging Fire Emblem more. They know that they have a very powerful series on their hands. And I'm really liking the fact that they're pushing this in the West as well. So it's going to be an exciting times if you're a Fire Emblem fan, which over the last couple of years I've really grown into being a big fan. I still have to play the Game Boy Advance ones and the Super Nintendo ones, but hopefully I'll get around to that at some point. But I'm very excited for both Sharp FE and the Fire Emblem If.
Yeah, no, as one of the biggest Fire Emblem fans on the planet, I'm really happy with all this news. And when it all hits next year will be a big year for Fire Emblem, and I'll be able to kind of set aside a lot of things so I could just focus on that and nothing else for a couple of months. So, yeah, as you said before, I love Awakening for its gameplay. I was amazed that the game ran 60 frames per second on a 3DS. I mean, it was just unbelievable. Gameplay-wise, I loved that game. Story-wise, I thought there's some incredible flaws, but If looks like it's going to rectify things with a much more intense and detailed story. So yeah, man, it is without a doubt one of my most anticipated games of next year. Whew.
All right.
And that is the Fire Emblem love there for you guys. Tell us how you think. Were you excited, or is there anything you want to say off your mind that could have been done better? Honestly, when it comes to If, I reckon it's going to be perfect.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I think it's about time that I leave this podcast now, right? Because I think we're going to be talking about some things I really don't want to talk about.
And it's really funny because I thought this was going to be like the Wars of If, Hoshino versus Noir, Arrow versus Greg in the Final Fantasy epic battle. However, that is actually not going to be the case.
Yeah, it's actually. I've spoken to you briefly about your thoughts on the Type 0 HD, and I've spoken briefly about 15, and it seems that we were both on the opposite side, but it seems that our opinions have gradually shifted, which will be for an interesting talk. So, yeah, I go ahead with Type 0 HD.
2 days ago, I finished the game. I had it on an easy mode. I didn't care because I had so much going on in my life that I wanted to just breeze through the game. And I've wanted to play it ever since I played the demo, and I loved the demo. Here's my quick thoughts on Final Fantasy Type Zero. Gameplay-wise, I actually really loved the battle system. I got a feel for it. I mainly use Ace and Queen and sometimes Seven, but I had so much fun playing this game, and I wanted to go into Type Zero not with the love of trying to play a new Final Fantasy game, but trying to see if there's a Final Fantasy game better than 13. For all the wrong reasons, I kind of had these rose-tinted goggles on, and this is going to be better than 13. This is going to be awesome. But as I was playing the game progressively, I noticed some flaws creeping up here and there towards the end of the game, and I couldn't ignore them. And in honesty, I like Type Zero gameplay-wise, like having that world map harken back to the old school games was awesome. The towns, I think this would be because of it being a PSP game and initially being a cell phone game, they have to use the same textures and the same designs for every town. And there's only 3 different types of town depending on the area you are in, but you will get that samey kind of vibe. But I guess, in a way, they did that for the older 8-bit and 16-bit games, for most of them, so that's what I kind of took away from it. So I didn't really have a problem with that. But, and the war battles, I actually kind of got a kick out of them. They're not like the best I've ever played, but for being a mini game, I enjoyed them, and it really helped that warlike setting. The thing about Final Fantasy Type Zero is I like the world of Type Zero. Orient is a really cool place, and they've got this wonderful setup for this full-scale war, and I really liked the actual premise. But for the actual telling of the story, it was all over the place. It really was. Sometimes they said too much, sometimes they didn't say enough at all, and you're left like... You had to kind of interpret things your own way. I know they had the Crystarium there to give you more information, but this is the thing that I think about when I want to read books in a game. I need the world and the main plot to be so interesting enough that I want to read everything in the world. Suikoden, for example. Suikoden 1 and 2, I love that world so much. When I got the old book volumes, I would go in the library and read about the history of Suikoden because I love the world already. I want to know more about the world. With Type Zero, even though I like the premise of the world, nothing truly grabbed me to read more about it. And from what I've heard, all that stuff in the Crystarium is recommended reading, so the game kind of forces you to read what's in there to kind of, I don't know, enhance what is there. The problem is that I have the game more than anything is Class Zero themselves. They looked cool to begin with, but as the game went along, they kind of had, pardon the pun, zero character progression.
Oh my god. Oh, that's
well,
just...
A lot of people will disagree with me. I personally didn't think they had that much character progression. They stayed the same they were. And people would probably argue, well, they were created by Dr. Erasia to not feel emotions and not be sad if their fallen comrades. That kind of annoyed me that half the conversations with the characters was about trying to remember their fallen comrades and question why they were made this way. Constantly. And I didn't really care for it that much. The thing is that the thing about Type Zero, however, that really bothered me, really fucking bothered me, and made me jokingly call this game a death simulator, is that death was not penalized. You could continue playing the game if your party was wiped out. The only thing you get penalized is you would get a bad ranking at the end of the game, which kind of sucks for first timers because you would have these impossible boss counters where you cannot possibly beat them. You would die. Something would happen in the story to save the characters. Sometimes it even match up, and you would progress to the next chapter.
I believe, from what I've read, is you're actually forced to play the game at least 3 times to completion to be strong enough to get what is assembled the true ending. And that, I will get into my thoughts. I haven't played it for a lot, but that is just utter bullshit.
Yeah. I got this feeling as well as I was playing the boss battles. You know, some boss battles I would beat in 2 seconds, and some would wipe out my party. The difficulty is very inconsistent. And like I said, it's a really weird experience for me because honestly, I enjoyed most of the game, gameplay-wise. I enjoyed going into battles, and some cutscenes are great, but a lot of them are quite boring. Machina is my least favorite character in the game, and he ends up being the one they focus on the most.
Yeah, I figured, yeah.
And he says the same exact thing over and over and over. I'll protect you, Rem.
Sarah!
I'll protect you, Rem. They don't even change his line of dialogue. And I basically said, all right, to players of Type 0, here's a drinking game. Every time he says that, take a shot. You'll be hospitalized at the end of the game.
It's snow all over again. I think it was Spoony who did like a Sarah counter.
Yeah.
In his video reviews on Final Fantasy 13. That ended up at like 250 or something.
Yeah. They'll be able to do the same thing. But the thing is it all... It's like they had this grand idea for a game, but they didn't follow through with any of their elements, because the Fabula Nova Crystallis part of the game is the whole fact that each kingdom has a l'Cie and has a focus. And some of those scenes are really cool, but they don't really delve into those characters too much. They're very much throwaway characters. Even though they design them really nicely, they're only in there for one or two scenes, a few scenes, and to be sort of sacrificial pawns. And I'm like, oh man, wasted opportunity. And that's the biggest thing I can say about Type 0. I will not think this is a bad game. Honestly, if you want to know a number value, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I would say mostly I enjoyed it, but I think that this game was wasted opportunity. But it's a great blueprint to make a much better game, and that's what I can definitely say. But now this is the part that I have to warn my viewers that if you are playing Type 0, you might want to skip a couple of minutes, because I have to get this off my chest, and this is what annoyed me. I think I had the game about at an 8 out of 10, but after this I deducted a point. So everyone from this point, skip a little bit.
Because it's spoilers?
Here it is.
Or...
I'm not going to spoil what happens, but after I say this, Arrow, you won't want the game.
Okay.
The final boss is unlosable. You cannot lose that battle.
It is a Gears of War 2 bullshit again. Is it a multi-form boss? Because to be honest, in Final Fantasy history, the final form sometimes, like in a certain PS2 Final Fantasy game, it was unlosable as well.
No, you actually have to, the characters, like I said, being a death simulator, the characters have to die, only to then have an immortal status, that you had to fight the battle with each character. They could not die.
Phoenix down.
Pretty much, and I basically the final battle is my most favorite part of any RPG, and you've taken away any tension there could have been. And I was just just roll the credits. And, people said to me, Greg, that final scene in the game was so depressing, I cried. And I said to them, I wish I could, but I didn't have that attachment to the characters that I would feel that emotion towards them.
But technically, that is just the normal ending, right? And you can actually go into doing the second or third playthrough to find out more what is behind the scenes, which I've read up on it. Fuck off.
Yeah, I read up on too.
It is ridiculous and completely... I hate these games that just negate the entire game before it. I hate that style. So I'm not very interested to even attempt to play the game a second and a third time to get this true ending.
Well, I got more of the information just by reading the history, because when you start the game, you've got the history option, and even when you beat the game, there's an extra chapter that you can actually witness. And if I find out that that's the actual true chapter that you can unlock by playing the game, well then fuck, I didn't play the game again, and I got to watch it. And then it has that sort of that epic sort of CG cutscene that they actually give at the end of the thing, alluding to what could possibly happen. And I didn't even attempt to play it again. So I was like, I'm kind of glad I played it once. There was a lot of times. Now, a lot of people thinking, wow, great, you sound like you hate it. And I'm annoyed. I liked the game, but I'm annoyed that it didn't follow through with everything. And to be fair, it was originally meant to be a mobile phone game that got ported to the PSP. And this game more resembles like what a high quality mobile phone Final Fantasy game would be, rather than just a PSP game. I think it's a game that if curious parties want to play it, I'd say wait till it's cheaper, wait till it's a lot cheaper, because that's the only problem I had is the price I paid. I wish I paid a little bit less, and then I would have been comfortable. But I think that honestly, they had a lot of great ideas for this game, and they never followed through with any of them. And honestly, the main audience for this game is 14 to 18-year-olds. If you're in that age bracket, you will probably love this game. Like, it's for that crowd. It really is for that teenage crowd. Probably think it's a masterpiece how the ending is, and I've been looking forward to a game that has a little bit of a less sort of happy ending, but at the same token, I want it to be about characters I care for, which I didn't care for Class Zero that much, honestly. So that is my Type Zero sort of mini review. Yeah, man, I like it better than 13. That's all I can say.
Oh well, let me. I absolutely hated it. We played the demo. This was back in 2011. I liked the demo. At that time, I thought, hey, this might be interesting for a PSP. I played the PSP fan translation last year. I played it for about 4 to 6 hours. I got up midway. I think I got very close to chapter 3. And it was, I was entertained. I thought, yeah, this is going to be a great game, but I was running into some issues like second analog stick camera control. I was running into some strange quest management, and the story did not really grip me. So, of course, Type 0 HD was announced. I figured I'm just going to stop playing Type 0 on the PSP, and I'll just pick up Type 0 HD. This was pre-ordered back in November, I would say. So I slapped down about 90 euros, prepaid it for the Type 0 HD Collector's Edition, because I had Final Fantasy Collector's OCD. And so I get the game, and I immediately jump into Final Fantasy 15 episode Discay. We'll talk about that more. And I was completely disgusted by it, but again, we'll save that. And so I start Type 0 HD, and it starts off okay, interesting, and then it just falls down so fast. And the main reason I stopped playing the game after, again, about 4 hours, I cannot play this game on the PS4. It is just impossible for me to play because I literally got headaches from the second analog stick camera control. It swivels around so fast that I couldn't handle it. And I am usually the type of gamer, like say Call of Duty, that has his sensitivity up just on the normal levels. I play online and with my nephew, he bumps it up to like one of the highest sensitivities. I cannot do it like that. I need to have a very slow-paced, well, not too slow-paced like in 15, but I need to have, control over it. And yeah, it was impossible. I don't know, did you struggle with the camera control?
Strangely, I didn't, but I could understand how people could, because I kind of saw it as kind of like, I think this is the reason I did, is like how elite Class Zero is, that they could dodge and move about. At times it was just like, yeah. I didn't get sick from, and it's not just you, a lot of people that I've talked to, they felt the same way, they'd get motion sickness. But yeah, at the same time, I did think that the camera control was a little bit too wild. And I think it just needed to be polished and sharpened a little bit more, which I think is something they need to work on, Square Enix, because it's not just that game, it's a couple of their games. Whoever works on the camera control for those games, they need to get someone else because it's not working out. Because I've played so many games that just have camera controls that are so sort of tight and it's not even an issue. But for them to sort of like go that far, it's like, okay. Now this is the thing I wanted to touch upon, is I think Type 0 is really an evolution. We might have said this years ago when we talked about the demo, but it really is a evolution of Crisis Core's battle system. But Crisis
Yeah.
Core kind of had a little bit more grounded and was a little bit more fluid, and you didn't have motion sickness at all. But yeah,
Yeah, it's you know I really tried to get into it, but then when I was playing it, I saw that some scenes were looked gorgeous and some scenes were just really badly handled, and there was just absolutely nothing in the story gripping me. They just introduced this class zero, and it's actually good to hear that there's no or virtually no character development because I'm just not interested at all. I've given up playing it. I'm actually selling my copy to one of our listeners who's listening right now. I'm selling it to Michael. So I hope you will sit through this game and enjoy it like Greg did because I absolutely detest it.
yeah, mostly enjoyed.
Well, yeah, I know. The 7 out of 10 mostly enjoyed it. And that's what I get from some people that actually finished it. They were okay, they enjoyed it. And I've spoken to very few like myself that are just. It is my worst game of 2015. Now, granted, I've only played 3 games that are released in 2015, which are Brandish, which I would say, even though I've not played it a lot, I like more than Type Zero.
Oh
And,
yeah, I love Brandish.
yeah,
More than
I
Type
know you
Zero.
like it, of course. And then there's the episode Discae, but I like that more than Type Zero. But Type Zero HD, it is a quick cash grab with a demo of 15. Way too overpriced. It should have been like maybe $40.
Mm.
And it should have been on a Vita, for instance. It should not have been a PS4 title. And I just the only thing that they needed to do is port the PSP game and add second analog control. And if you can't even pull that off, uh, this is also a breaking point for me where I had my breaking point with Lightning Returns a couple of months ago. But even that, I bothered to watch a Let's Play of the story so I could understand it. Here, I just don't care at all. I am totally fine with never even touching Type Zero's world again. I know that they are working on Agito, which is a mobile phone game which is being ported to the PlayStation Vita in Japan, which is a
Yeah.
prequel. And now they're hyping up Type 1.
Well,
No.
okay. This is my thoughts. Agito, not interested in that at all. Type 1, this is what you need to do. You have an interesting blueprint for a game. Don't make the same mistakes you did in Type 0. If you're going to have characters, make them far more interesting, have great character development. And you already had a great premise with the Type 0. You just need to expand on everything. You want people to be interested in all parts of the world and why they are fighting. Like the Milites Empire is the evil empire wanting to take over everything. Why? Why did they want to take over?
Oh, that wasn't
didn't-
even explained?
No, if it was very brief. It was extraordinarily brief. And I was like, oh man, even 12, like I've always thought that Final Fantasy 12 was kind of like mid to higher tier, like in how I rate all the games. But at least the Empire in that game was more interesting, in my opinion, far more interesting,
Yeah.
So just expand. Just, you have this great idea, but just don't make the same mistakes with Type 0. Work on everything, elaborate, and it'll be a much better game.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's about. I think that's about it for Type 0. I would say.
Yeah.
It is not for me. I am extremely, extremely cautious when it comes down to Final Fantasy. I've looked into it pretty much everything Final Fantasy that is on the pipeline right now. I am not instant sold on it like I am with, for instance, Atlas. There is the only thing that I'm very excited for with that brands the Final Fantasy name is potentially Final Fantasy Dimensions 2, which is Legends, the Time Space Crystal in Japan. It's an iOS game. It's supposed to come out in Japan. But I love Dimensions back in the day because it was a traditional Final Fantasy game. But other than that, Record Keeper, Mavius, what else is there? G-Bike, Type 01.
They think, I don't know, someone said that they want to change the name of Mevius and it's going to be called Mobius instead. I was like, okay. I watched the trailer for that and I'm like, yeah, nah. I mean, I'm not like dissing the game. It's just like I don't think I'll have time for that, honestly. But
Yeah.
my most anticipated game is one that's not even in development for consoles, and that is me hoping for a PS4 version of the new Dissidia game.
Oh yeah,
That's one of those.
I've never been a Dissidia fan. I've been selling off all my Dissidia copies as well. So the
Oh
only
man.
thing that I'm very excited for Final Fantasy is to replay Final Fantasy VI, which I really need to do. And since nobody is going to, it seems that Square is just giving up on this port for 3DS or Vita. I think I'll just have to play the Game Boy Advance version. And then the most hyped I am for Final Fantasy is Bravely Second.
Ah man, and I actually did watch the trailer at the Nintendo Direct Japan. It looks really good. I was really blown away with Bravely Default. I remember when it first came out, I wasn't really that interested, but after playing the demo and playing the first couple of chapters of the game, I'm really into it, and I cannot wait to beat it. And I'll definitely get End Layer when it comes out.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's so yeah, it's Square for me right now is yeah, Bravely Second. I would like Dragon Quest Theater Rhythm. Um, and I know you're not into rhythm games, but
Well, that actually might change soon with the video I'm doing. Oh no, I still hate rhythm games, but there's going to be a new video I'll be doing once every year. Well, I'll force myself to play one,
oh,
and you'll get to see my reactions.
that's going to be hilarious. It's yeah, well,
Um,
it's Square Enix. They have fallen. If you follow my channel, you will know that I am just not into them anymore, and they have just become like another run of the mill. Yeah, maybe I'll pick up your game if I'm interested, but most of the time I just won't even care. Which I think brings us to the big one of this
yep.
episode, which is Final Fantasy 15 Episode Duscae. And I tried to stay away from the word demo as much as possible. This is Episode Duscae. But yeah, um, go ahead, Greg. What are your thoughts on the big
Well,
demo?
Well, besides the city, it's a unofficial the city version that might come here in the future. This is actually my most anticipated Final Fantasy product. I wanted to buy this because, like Arrow, I was very cautious of anything Final Fantasy branded ever since 13, and I thought to myself, I need this demo to convince me if this is going to be a good game or good purchase. And I was actually surprised. I actually really love this game. However, being a demo, I think it was good how they said they wanted their fans to address the problems. The demo had a lot of problems, but they're not game design flaws, they're programming errors which can be easily ironed out for the initial release. Now, let's talk about why I love the episode Duske. One, I actually like the cast of characters. I think they need a lot more story to them, but from some of their dialogue when they're going back and forth, I actually really liked them as a group. There wasn't one man that was sort of lesser than the others, even though Prompto was probably kind of like the lesser for me, but I thought he was glad he was still there. Ignis was probably my favorite. Am I pronouncing his name right? The
Yeah,
guy with the glasses. Yeah,
yeah,
he was my favorite character. He was pretty awesome. Noctis, I actually liked him using him more than most of the other Final Fantasy protagonists. So I thought the characters themselves are very promising. The battle system holds a lot of potential, but that is the one part of the game that needs to be fine-tuned the most. There was a lot of the movement in that game. It kind of felt like I was floating a bit, like I was overstretching what I was using with the analog stick. I think they need to sort of change that. Targeting for some enemies was very haphazardous. Like when you were fighting the Sabertooths, I missed so many times, and I thought it was me, but then I went online, and it was pretty much 95% of everyone who played that game was missing a lot.
whiffing.
So
They run away. They run around too fast. They were quite annoying.
So that also brings up the issue of AI. They need to fix that. But I can understand what they were going for with the combat system. And I, as a fan of Kingdom Hearts, as a fan of action RPGs, I really enjoyed playing this game. I understand what they were going for. I know that there'll be probably a greater explanation of Noctis's magical blade system, where he always has 5 blades on him as once, and they were used to make combos. And I would always mix and match, and I always end my combos with a partisan spear, and they would stab the enemy for great damage. And I kind of fine-tuned myself to have this great combination. Um, the system for how they deal with HP and how you have to sort of revive the character is very unique in the fact that when your character gets to 0, they're not dead. You actually have this period where they can heal, and if they get healed with potions or assistance from the characters, you can get straight back into the battle. But when you're in this 0 sort of stasis form, if you keep getting hit when you're in the stasis form with this red bar and that goes down to nothing, then your character is dead and you need a Phoenix down to revive them. I thought it was very different, that I've never experienced in a game. There could have been one ages ago, but I never remembered, but it was very unique. But it also sort of made the game a little bit easier because I was never sort of low on potions, and there were so many rocks and terrain to hide behind to resuscitate and sort of get back in, because character AI was sort of, it was, a lot of people I've talked to is they didn't think the character AI was that great, but for my gameplay of the game, my walkthrough, I noticed that the characters would make a habit of resuscitating Noctis if he was down, and I never really had a problem with that. So, again, I think they just need to fine-tune it. Now, the one thing I thought that was a little bit of a cop-out. I think I know why they did it for the demo, but I thought it was probably one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in a video game is when you summon Rama to defeat the boss of the demo, and then he just completely one-hit kills the boss, which in one mindset I'm like, that's terrible. That just took out all the challenge of the game. At the same time, I'm like, that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen visually in a video game.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And it really showed the capabilities of what this generation is capable of, and I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And I really enjoyed playing this demo. I mean, the Land of Duscae is really cool. I liked like the gas station with Cindy and all the patrons there. And I will say this now, I was waiting for Aero to hear this, but when you go to the Chocobo sort of ranch, I actually had a big smile on my face. I thought this was actually the most nostalgic I ever was for Final Fantasy in the last 5 years, because someone is playing the Chocobo theme on a harmonica, and I was like, that's really fucking cool.
Yeah, that was really cool as well. A very nice touch.
And just how that area was set up, you got the Chocobos there, and it was like a kiosk out in the middle of nowhere, and caravans. And now this is the thing I actually like that people were sort of 50-50 on. I like the rest system. I like the fact that you have to stockpile your EXP, and then it cashes in when you rest, and you got everyone sort of dining around, and whatever you eat affects your status for the next day. If they can expand upon that, that's actually one of the most shining parts of Final Fantasy 15 that I really loved. And like, you know, if you can make some epic dishes and towards the end that might triple your XP bonus, it might like give you insane attack power, or it might give you immunity if you had to go up against a Mahobo. I mean, I know I fuck up that name, you know, or Nochu, that really fucks up with your status. You know, you can prepare yourself for anything, and I think they've created this great system for anyone to play. And as a fan of action RPGs, I am really excited for this game. And I've kind of taken out what I've kind of perceived a Final Fantasy game to be in order to enjoy this fully. Like, there's a lot of fan service here and there to let fans know it's a Final Fantasy game, but it does feel like an entirely brand new experience. I'm okay with that because I'm digging this brand new experience, and I absolutely loved the game. One more thing I do have to comment on before I give it over to Aero. There's one thing they also have to really fix, and that is the encounter sort of cluster that can happen in the game. I encountered so many parts of the game where I had 3 loads of enemies at me at once. And this would usually happen whenever a Magic Tech squad would just plant themselves in the middle of a fight. And then I would have up to twice, even 3 times the lot of enemies to kill. And it would prove to be really tough. And they're very inconvenient, those Magitech soldiers. They just show up in the worst possible time.
Yeah.
But I actually enjoyed the game for the most part, and I've seen some people love the game so much they even went to level 99 in the demo
Whew.
to play, and it's just like crazy shit. And then you can see them taking on the behemoth without the use of Rama, which was... Oh, and I should mention, to get Rama, you had to do the whole Goblin Cave, which I thought was really awesome. I spoke to a lot of people that really did not like that Goblin Cave because they would get rocked, but I actually did it in one go, and I thought it was really cool. And that was another sort of fan service because the Goblin designs were straight out of the first game, and I really liked that. I thought it was really cool. So... yeah, there's a lot to like if you're a Final Fantasy fan, but at the same time, you kind of got to distance yourself around what is a Final Fantasy game to really enjoy this. This is the evolution, or the big change, as I would like to say. It happened exactly with Phantasy Star when it moved into the online era and became an action RPG. It wasn't for the best, but at least I could enjoy that on its own merits as well, and I'm thinking it's going to be the same for 15. I won't like it for the reasons the other games were, but I'll like it for its own things. So yeah, all in all, I really enjoyed it, and I'm definitely going to get the full game.
All right, that sounds great. So my thoughts are very, very strange. I'm sure that there are some people listening that have actually witnessed my first experience with the demo. So when I got the demo, episode DUSCAE, I started streaming it on Twitch, and it's available on my YouTube channel. I've never played it before. I've only watched a few trailers, and in about 2.5 hours, I finished the entire demo. Just my unembellished first impressions. Like, you can't get more first impressions than that. And when I was doing so, I absolutely hated it. I am going so far to say that it is by far my worst ever gaming experience in my life, because it was an annoying game to play. It was just the whole shock that this is indeed the end of Final Fantasy, and to see how much has changed from nostalgia. I was really, really disappointed by it. So I took 2 days off after the demo, but thinking I have to give it another shot. So I went back into it, and I played it some more, and especially paid more attention to the tutorial. And by doing so, I found out that it comes down to I was just basically playing it wrong. So how I was playing the gameplay element, and this is my main concern. I like turn-based RPGs. Final Fantasy for me is turn-based RPG, and it's not a turn-based RPG right now. But the first time I was playing it, I was going all out with just mashing buttons and just hitting the attack button and the defend button, and it was just not working at all. So it turns out that you can actually hold down the attack buttons. So you can just hold down, square, or actually moved it to X, I believe, in any case, I was holding down the attack button, and if you just do it like that, then Noctis will immediately do a combo without having to mash buttons. And the same can be said for defense. And that becomes a much more, I would say, relaxed way of playing this game, and especially the random encounters became a lot more manageable, where you just do a warp strike into the enemy, and then you hold down the attack button, and it starts pulling off this combo. And you can throw in some techniques. You can switch up your swords that you have. And I was kind of understanding it a little bit more, so I came around on the gameplay system a little bit. This is not saying that I am all of a sudden a massive fan of this action RPG style. I still am not. But I think and I mentioned this in one of my gaming diary video, I believe, they have to do some fixes for this one. One thing for me is This time they need to adjust the sensitivity on the right analog stick because it's too slow. That is one of the quick fixes they can do. Secondly, is they will have to give me, and I am so happy that update 2.5 on the PS4 allows me to do this myself. Basically, what you can do on the PS4 now is you can go into settings and accessibility. You can map your own control scheme how you want it, overriding whatever the game offers you. By doing so, I want to completely redefine the DualShock controls that are for 15. I don't like how it's set up. I want everything on the buttons, the triggers and the bumpers, like attack, defense, technique, dodging, warp strike, everything I want on top of it, and then I can just have the analog sticks to run around. Kind of like kind of more like shooter controls, I would say. I think that will fit me more than this L1 defense and square as attack. That's another quick win that they can do for me. I would like, thirdly, is I would like some sort of slow down mechanic where I can just look around the area and then target on a certain thing to warp out of, because I still struggle a lot with warping out of the fights. Now, granted, this is a very flat area and there's only a couple of towers, but I need something to just briefly slow up the pace of the game and to just actually target this warp so I can recover. And then I would say the biggest offender of the gameplay system is not necessarily the downed state, which if you have a 0 HP, you get into the downed state and you have like a bar, and if you get attacked too much, you will indeed get a game over, but you can get resurrected. That's fine. I kind of like that. But the main offender is stasis. And stasis is when you run out of MP, and if your MP is all gone, you get into this very slow walking state, and they either need to fix it by beefing up the MP recovery, have like mappable, like a arrow up or arrow down to just quickly do like MP recovery items. That is something that I would like them to add, because now you can do the touchpad and then you can select a potion, or you can select a elixir or antidote. But while my cats are going crazy and trying to knock over stuff, the stasis mechanic I thought is the main offender. At first I thought it was just everything, but if you hold down the attack buttons, it's more relaxing, it's more fun to play. But that stasis mechanic, especially in the goblins, you get stasis because of the potion, the poison mechanic or status ailment, and just having this stasis thing got really frustrating. I have to be honest, I've only played the goblin part once. I have not gone back a second time to do the goblin part. Maybe I'll have to do that again now that I know the control scheme a little bit better. But I am overcoming that shock factor now. At first I was like, I'm never going to buy this game. I'm still not very excited to buy this at day one launch, but I can probably see myself buying this on the cheap. And this is just episode DUSCAE. I know that they'll add in some more improvements. I still feel that I have a feeling it's going to be this epic grand story where the main characters have to go out on this journey. And I know there's no female characters in the main party, which is a little bit disappointing. But they already mentioned that they will most likely have female guest characters running around. It's kind of like Final Fantasy XII, I would say, that had the guest character thing done down the most. It is the characters are nice, but man, that demo, that beginning scene, just everything, either not picking up the alarm clock, or I'm sorry, and I am not, sexual orientation for anybody out there is fine, but this demo was really heavy on the gay undertones. I have to throw that out there. It is very, very frustrating for me to see, because the main characters are, you know, handled in a very strange way, and then you meet Sydney and or Cindy, and then it's like, you know, she's so overly sexualized with the most insane cleavage and like these ass shots that you see in a Fast and the Furious movie. It was pretty bad. I have a feeling they are missing the boat there in terms of character design and how they portray male and female characters. But that is just
See,
from episode Escape.
I've always found that to be sort of like a nitpick with me when people like assume that there's gay overtones for characters, and like, well, unless they actually say they are gay, then they're not exactly gay. I mean, look what happens with that show with that situation with Cindy. Two of the former party members are trying to, get in with her, get a date with her, whilst Noctis and Ignis, don't really care because they've got much important things to think about.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I liked about old school games, is they didn't really worry about the sexual orientation of the character. This is the society we live in. And I've always wanted people to take a step back and just enjoy characters for who they are other than their sexual orientation, because it doesn't define a person entirely.
No, definitely not.
That's why I don't see four guys out on the road trip as gay. I just like, hey, they're just four guys, like they're just the prince's sort of like bodyguards,
Yeah,
They
no,
gotta
no,
make sure he
that's
doesn't
true.
die. Yeah,
I just have to that tense scene in the beginning with the grunts and the waking up. It was a little bit out there. I'd much rather had like an opening cutscene of like 5 minutes that established the world and just hype you up. But instead, I
yeah,
got this, and I just break out in laughter on the stream. But
yeah.
I think it will be handled better. I wanted to have a little bit more motivation, and in terms of who is who, and like established who is what
Yeah.
in the squad. Um, why are they there? Um,
That's what I want in well, you can say that older games didn't really do that. They did that really well eventually. Like look at Final Fantasy VII. Cloud gets off the train with Barrett and you don't know too much about them, but as the story progresses, you got some tremendous backstory for each and every character, and that's why it made the game so memorable. So of course, out of the gate, I reckon there's got to be some sort of conflict or whatever. Unless there's going to be like a flashback, like you probably see them fleeing the capital city, and then they flash back to when they were on that journey towards the capital city. That would be actually really cool.
yeah,
But yeah, if you want to make this a grand Final Fantasy game, you need to give these characters backstory. You need to give them motivations. Why are they helping the prince? Are they doing it out of obligation to the kingdom, or do they have some sort of friendship with the prince? Don't just be like Type Zero. We're just tools of war, yo. By the way, I just want to throw this out there very quickly. Whoever Nine's English voice actor is, don't do any more roles.
no, I actually looked up the voice acting for Type Zero HD. There's a lot of newcomers.
Yeah.
There's only Matt Mercer, I believe, who had a relatively good. I believe he was Trey.
My favorite voice actor, Crispin Freeman, he voiced a psychotic soldier from the Empire, and he was amazing.
Ah,
Especially
okay.
if you've ever played the Xenosaga games and heard him as Albedo, it's pretty much the same. You get like a taste of that. It was really cool. Some voice acting was great, but the guy playing Nine was all thuggish and like, yo, listen to me, yo, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, no,
I
I,
feel
I I
like
put it on Japanese from the get go.
But I will
For this.
say that's what made episode Duscae a little bit better, because I like the voice acting in episode Duscae. Like Ignis was a really cool character, and I really liked his voice actor. I really liked that he was the strategist type character of the group. It's just like, yeah, he's probably my favorite character so far. Even though you can't play as him, you can only play as Noctis. So
Yeah,
and that was actually that was an issue with a lot of people, that you couldn't play as anyone else. But I saw it as this in Kingdom Hearts, you can only play as Sora for the most part, so it's kind of the same thing.
yeah, no, that is definitely true. So yeah, in terms of the gameplay, mm, yeah, improve it a little bit, and I will get better. Story for me is the most important factor. And when we talk about Final Fantasy, story for me has always been, I need gripping characters that go on this journey, good character development, good villains, and
Yes.
I I would say I still trust Square to do that. I know Type Zero is different, but in terms of the main Final Fantasies, I still like to believe that now they have this whole new world and they can just set out a good story. And of course, visually and also soundtrack wise, it looks and sounds fantastic. So
Yes.
um,
I very quickly allow me to talk about the soundtrack. Is Yoko Shimomura is one of my favorite composers of all time, and I never had a doubt that the soundtrack would sound nothing short of just godlike. And sure enough, even though we've already heard these tracks and trailers a million times, it was fantastic to hear them in the game. And to me, honestly, I think the soundtrack is a perfect 10 out of 10. It's just absolutely amazing.
it was a little bit too Kingdom Heartsy at times. I was like, hey, I'm not
That's
playing
not a
Kingdom
bad
Hearts.
thing.
But it's
That's
not a bad
thing.
thing, no. But it just reminded me of Kingdom Hearts too much. But it is a really, really good soundtrack, I would say. And at least, this is what I hated about Type Zero. Don't overuse the prelude. That makes no sense at all. When you're in the school in Type Zero HD, you just hear the prelude over and over again. The prelude should be something special.
Yeah, I will admit, I will agree on that. But there is one thing I have to ask you, Arrow.
Sure.
This is actually the thing that I would say it wouldn't make me mad. It made me a little bit worried if my PS4 was dying. Now, there was a couple times in the game that I noticed some slowdown. However, the first encounter with the behemoth and you had to run away, did it look like your PS4 was about to shut down? Because the game looked like it was about to freeze.
I maybe because I was streaming as well. There were some hiccups here and there, but nothing really super laggy or something. It never dropped a lot on the FPS. Maybe try it again and see what happens. But
What happened was is that initial it's actually a little bit of a cutscene when you have to flee the behemoth. There's like this sort of cover that you have to kick off and you slide through this hole.
yeah,
When
yeah.
Noctis kicked that cover, the game looked like it was about to freeze, and I was like, what the fuck? Because when I looked on it on YouTube, he kicks it and has this smooth slide into outside the area. That did not look like that when I played it.
Maybe it
It-
was
it-
a glitch or something. But if you're too worried, then I say try it again and see if it happens again. And maybe something is wrong with the installation, or
Yeah.
I hope
But,
not your PS4, of course.
No, because I just bought it. But there's been a few things with my PS4 lately. Like I've been talking to someone about Dragon Quest Heroes. There is a very big concern concerning the hub area. Whenever you go into the hub area, the fans kick into high gear of the PS4. Like immediately I'll finish a battle, go into the hub world, and my fans are going on full blast. I can hear the fucking thing from the other side of the house.
Where is your PS4 located? Is it in an enclosed area?
No, it's well ventilated.
Okay.
On all sides. Like it is sort of facing a wall, but it's not like right against the wall. It's got a great distance between the wall. Yeah, I'll have to look into it. But there's some games that I play, like The Last of Us and Dead or Alive 5, and it doesn't even make that noise. So, and I found out that it's been happening to everyone. So it's just that Square or Koei in that regard for Heroes has to just do some quick changes and just put in a patch to make it load better.
Well,
But anyway, getting back
Yeah.
to 15. Like I said, I love 15. The only things that I would say that I had problems with are just things that can be ironed out for the full release. It wasn't anything wrong with the overall game's design. It's just programming errors. And that's kind of, when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, that's probably the only thing you wanted to worry about. Like, if they released it as it was, as the full game, yeah, you would have some fucking problems. But I'm pretty sure they will go ahead and iron out everything. And there is some texture problems. Like, I think some of the textures look amazing, but I noticed when you were trying to crawl and type spaces, you would notice the pixelation a little bit.
yes.
So that's also something they just need to work on a little bit. But the one thing they need to do for 15 is they need the overall journey to be worthwhile. Like, people worried about this being Final Fantasy Road Trip just for shits and giggles. However, if every step of the way there can be small good adventures to be had that adds to the story, or give you some amazing places to grind while you want to progress with the story, then yeah, that would be awesome. I think ever since I saw this as Versus 13 way back in around 2007, I thought that out of the Fabula Nova Crystallis package, this was always going to be the game I was anticipated for. And story-wise, when I looked at that sort of trailer at the end of the demo, I was even more excited. I thought this sounds like it's got a lot going for it, a lot of attention to detail. Still very cautious after Type 0, and it's like as long as they can avoid just doing quick fixes and quick storytelling and just elaborate on everything, then it should be a game that's at least worthy of the Final Fantasy name in terms of story. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with that. It's going to be it's going to be a big change for Final Fantasy, and I'm just looking at it as a one-off. I'm just looking at Final Fantasy 15, and I can kind of see myself picking it up and enjoying it. I'm not taking in all the other Final Fantasy stuff that's going on at the moment. Just looking at Final Fantasy 15 and what I've played from the demo, there are some fixes, and I just need to wrap my head around the fact that, turn-based Final Fantasy RPGs are now called Bravely. Then I can think I'll enjoy 15. It can fall completely flat on its face if the story is really bad and it's a very rushed game, because, games just take longer to develop nowadays. And Episode DUSCAE, yeah, it's a nice area, but if it's not a very grand epic adventure or something, then I will be a little bit bummed out. And I might pick it up. We'll see how it goes.
And this is my biggest request for the game, Square Enix. Do not milk the fuck out of this game. The next game that you'll be working on is Final Fantasy 16, not 15-2, not Final Fantasy 15, not Noctis Returns. No, 16, or get the fuck out.
I completely agree with this, based on the fact that it's also versus 13. So just 15, and then 15, and then go into the Agnes Philosophy tech demo you made, and then we'll talk later.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said they should base 16 off Agnes Philosophy, which would be amazing. So, and then have 17 waiting. Like, do what you did with what I don't know what they did in the mid-90s. They did it right. They had all these projects, and yes, there were some problems, but at least they managed to get them out. Sadly, at the cost of other games like Xenogears, but how they handled the Final Fantasy series development, yeah, just make sure you keep having them. Have like really good writers in the shadows writing game scenarios and having them ready for production, whenever time has come to get into a new development of a game. So you can have them every 3 years. I thought having a Final Fantasy game every 3 years, I mean, that's in general. I love it when iterations are 3 years apart, 2 at the max. And a lot of people saying to me, what about Kiseki games? And I said, well, that's a little different. It's kind of like 2 games that are meant to be one. They go in this developing one game and split them into 2 because they're so big. And that's why they released them back to back within a year of each other. So that's a little bit different. But don't go the Ubisoft route and trying to create a brand new experience from the ground up and wondering why your game is doing badly when it launches.
Yeah.
Just take your time. The 3-year sort of development avenue is the best. Stick with that. And that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, no, we'll see what happens with Final Fantasy 15. We'll see when it potentially is ready for launch. I still feel that it's a pretty long ways off. I feel that it's going to be released late 2016 in Japan. Maybe they'll finally do a worldwide release, and then we'll get it late 2016, maybe November, December-ish. Otherwise, we'll have to wait until 2017 in the West. But yeah, it was very interesting, that first experience that I had, but I've come around to it, and I can always pick up the demo some more and play with it, because there's still some things that I'd like to see and do. But it's going to be an interesting change, and this is really the first time ever that a main Final Fantasy game that is not online is coming out. where I'm just not completely sold on it right away. But that's fine with me. It is looking
As,
like a good game.
as much as I feel kind of bad for you, you're kind of feeling how I was with 13. And
Yeah,
I'm
I
saying
can.
that to a lot of people.
I can totally see the 13 side. The people that are very disappointed by 13. I can see that now because I'm with 15. But yeah, it's at least it's nice to have played this demo after so many years of waiting, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. And for right now, 15 is my game of the year because I've only played 3 games of 2015.
Oh man, if I had to go from one of the biggest surprises, man, I don't care if I keep annoying people. I'm so in love with Orishika Bloodlines. That is such an amazing game. Oh man, I can't wait to do an episode on that. I just absolutely love that game.
Hmm.
But it could be just one of those experiences that's just for me. But it ties with Persona 4 The Golden as like my third favorite PS Vita experience. I
Yeah,
love
you,
it so.
you told me before. I have not played the game yet. Maybe if it comes on sale, I'll check it out. But that's good to know. So, you know, people out there,
But
check out
bef
Orishika.
but before I leave, I just want to touch upon something very quickly. It's about this year, and I know Arrow's probably noticed this as well. The big ticket item everyone is working on is contemporary modern day RPGs. It's become a big thing. Like, Persona 5, Persona in general has always been sort of like the mother of this genre. But then now you've got, of course, Illusionary Revelations, which of course is understandable. Then you've got Tokyo Xanadu from Falcom, which this is what worries me is being the Falcom fanatic, and I've been looking at the news. They've kind of dropped everything in favor of this game.
Hmm.
They've just dropped everything. Like Issei, they haven't even mentioned that since TGS. Tokyo Xanadu got announced after TGS, like in Christmas, and this actually has a website and has weekly updates. And I'm sitting there like, what happened, man? It's like I'm not really concerned that much, but it's just amazing that they would just push that to the side in favor of resurrecting an IP that's been dormant for 10 years, and they want to kind of add their own flair and claim this that this is their contemporary sort of RPG. Even 15 that Duscae is based off kind of like a rural American countryside in a way, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of RPGs are now borrowing from the real world more than ever. And it's just weird that, coming from the ages where, you go for high fantasy beyond everything else, high fantasy seems to be taking a step back and everyone's favoring this contemporary modern age, or as I like to call it, the contemporary Tokyo RPGs, because a
Yeah.
lot of these places take place in different sort of districts. And I'm sure these are not the only games. I'm sure there's other RPGs coming out.
Well, there is
That
Asteria and Bravely Second that seem to be a more realistic or a more fantasy
Yeah,
style, but
yeah,
I
high
get what
fantasy.
you're going for. It's selling like hotcakes. This anime-esque, realistic style, and it makes sense because it's in the end, video games are a consumer product, and they like to make what sells well. So it's
Mm,
the sad hard truth that we're now facing in gaming
yeah.
land.
Thankfully, they're not going to shove high fantasy to the side. And even with sci-fi games, you've got Xenoblade Chronicles X coming out. Oh, I wanted to mention very briefly that I was talking with a couple of friends today, and we talked about what type of character we like to create in RPGs, and do we favor one sex over the other. And I actually said I actually variate. Like one game I'll create a male character, and the next game I'll create a female character. Like when we're talking about Fire Emblem today, I'm pretty sure I'm going to go as a male character for Fire Emblem If, but people were surprised when I told them for Xenoblade Chronicles X, I'm actually going to make a female character.
I see.
I, I don't know why. Maybe I want to make my own version of Ripley. Or Samus Aran, or just have this cool female bounty hunter type character. Um, I don't know. I don't like to do that. I like to vary it up, So,
That's nice. That's nice.
but
Yeah. Well, no Xenoblade Chronicles X for me. I have to stay away from that game because I know I won't like it, and maybe in the future we'll see. But I'm staying away from that game when it launches, and we'll see afterwards.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I know there's a direct next week, which I'm probably going to attend and see what they've got to offer. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this episode.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everyone for listening. Ero, do you have any final thoughts before we end it?
Um, no, not really. I'm going in my. I've not really been playing, but I'm going in my Atlas trilogy now, which is Etrian Mystery Dungeon, Devil Survivor Overclocked, and Devil Survivor 2 Record Breaker. And then it's already June, and then I'm going to play one of my most hyped games for this year. This is Persona 4 Dancing All Night. So RPGs, RPGs, and Atlas RPGs all the way for me the next 2 or 3 months.
Well, before I end the podcast, I got to say, Operation Obliterate Ouroboros' back and forth effect. After playing Type Zero, I played about 10 hours of Aonoki Seki. Holy shit, I can't talk about it because that game, man, that game, I would probably go as far as say it's probably one of the best game, close to being the best game on the PSP. Fuck yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
It's so amazing, and I'm looking forward to as soon as we finish, which is about a couple of seconds from now. I'm going to get back into it. So,
excellent.
with with that in mind, I want to say to everyone, thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of your week, month, or until next time we upload an episode of RP Gibberish. Take care, everyone.
Bye bye.
Out to be like that's an insult. It's not. I'm just stating the facts, you know? Yeah, that started off as the Shin Megami Tensei X Fire Emblem collaboration, but along the way it became something new. You know, if they admit that, awesome, you know? But if it is a game in the later sort of directs and information pieces, and we do get information that has more Fire Emblem elements, then yeah, sure, keep the name. I'm going to say this now. If they do actually have the Fire Emblem itself, because don't forget to anyone like me and Arrow, there's a lot of Fire Emblem games where the Fire Emblem is actually in the game and it plays a crucial part of the story. So if there is like a part in the game where they do need the Fire Emblem, then yeah, it becomes a Fire Emblem game, sure enough.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But as a unique Persona-looking RPG for the Wii U, I'm excited. I'm definitely going to get it. But the one thing, I watched the trailer again before the recording, and I didn't realize that the Pegasus that the girl character was riding had motors and all that shit. That I thought that was such a cool design.
I've not picked up on that one, but that you know, it looks and it shows. I was actually thinking about it. It actually shows in the title, Illusory Revelations. It seems that they are in some sort of parallel dimension or like some hidden world, kind of like Persona 4, where if you put on the glasses, you will see the shadows and stuff in the Midnight Channel. But it seems like there's like a parallel universe going on in Tokyo, and that they can go into these fights. And I have a feeling that it will be very lighthearted in terms of character development. That shows from the colorfulness of the characters, and then it will get a little bit more dark when they turn into, you know, these Fire Emblem characters. And I'm sure that there's some evil organization or maybe even some evil empire from Fire Emblem leaking into real life. And I'm very excited for it. It looks, like I already mentioned, it looks like a great companion piece to Persona 5. Kind of, you know, working well hand in hand together. I would just wish for. I think it's. I don't know what was your original idea? What were you expecting from Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem?
Well, originally I thought it was going to be a strategy RPG where you fight. The enemies would be demons from the Shin Megami Tensei series. I didn't think that they were going to use actual characters from both series. I thought it was going to be a brand new set of characters, but they would be fighting the already established demons from the series. That was just my initial reaction.
Yeah.
So when I saw the announcement.
Yeah. No, I share the same thought. I was going to feel that this was going to be a Devil Survivor / Fire Emblem strategy RPG, where it is this very distinct post-apocalyptic setting, but just in a Fire Emblem universe. So there was indeed this Fire Emblem Empire thrown in the mix in this epic war between two sides, maybe with recurring characters, maybe with new characters, and then, you know, all hell breaks loose, and it's demons. Then they have to fight against demons some strange way, maybe through their weapons, they can have, like in Devil Survivor, have your main character and then have two demons on the side that actually fight for you, like the demon summoning program in Devil Survivor. That was my original idea, so very distinct. Fire Emblem Shibuya, the first thing I thought was The World Ends With You and Devil Survivor, is to see that into play as well. It's, you know, it at first I was shocked because I had a little bit of a different view on it, which we'll probably dabble on a little bit soon. But I'm very excited for it. It looks like a nice companion piece to Persona. Of course, the fact that it is Fire Emblem will make sense that it's on the Wii U, but this could have been a game that could have been on the PS4, could have been on the Wii U, on the PS Vita. But it's because of the Fire Emblem property, of course. So, yeah, we'll have to wait. It's supposed to come out in winter of 2015 in Japan, and then I would guess somewhere-ish Q2 2016 if there's no more delays here in the West. So that's also a good thing. This game is already approved for the West, which is something that I really like, that Nintendo is taking this risk. But at the moment they need it, and I'm not going to get into a whole Wii U talk what they need, but this is pretty much the only game together with Zelda why I'm keeping my Wii U around, because I'm kind of excited for these exclusives. But yeah, that's all my initial first thoughts. Greg, what are your thoughts on Sharp FE trailer?
Well, it's really funny because I seem to be the only person going around just calling it Illusory Revelations, because I just think that's a kick-ass name for an RPG series. I mean, it doesn't even need to be tied to both Fire Emblem or Shin Megami Tensei. Just call it that. And I was like, oh man, I'd buy that in a heartbeat. A lot of people have been misinterpreting what I've been saying lately on my videos and different sort of messages between friends. I'm actually looking forward to this game as kind of like a standalone RPG and not really banking on any of the connections towards Fire Emblem and Shin Megami Tensei. But as I said before, I think the same. I think this looks like a Persona game. And I noticed that Atlas has taken this liking to making people that surround the player like non-existent, but their silhouettes are being known in reality. Like in the Persona 5 trailer, no one had any faces. In this, they're multicolored silhouettes to give the impression, yes, you're in a lively city, but it's just so otherworldly, and it just shows Atlas's distinct style. It just looks amazing. It is extraordinarily colorful. The designs of the demons and the bosses scream Shin Megami Tensei and Persona, and they look amazing. Now, the only Fire Emblem connection I can make from watching the trailer is indeed the characters will transform into different classes. As Ero said before, one of the girls transforms into a Pegasus Knight, one of them transformed into a dancer. It could have been the same character that transformed into two different classes. And then I saw a male character in one of the artwork, he transforms into a Lord character. So people saying that they will transform from certain Fire Emblem characters, but we don't know if they're the actual characters or just the classes that the series is known for. Honestly, I'd be happy if they just stuck with the classes and the different sort of races. I'm sure along the way they'll have some ties to the Fire Emblem because they kind of need it. Because as I said in my video, the less they bank on have connections to the Fire Emblem series, the less they should call it a Fire Emblem game. They should just drop it, and I don't think that's a big deal, honestly. If people make it. Welcome to RP Gibberish, the podcast where fantasies are never final. And with me, as always, is the Grandmaster himself, Aerodynamish. How you going?
Hey, good afternoon, good morning for everybody listening. It's going to be a great episode.
Originally, we were only going to cover one series, but recently there was a event that covered one of our favorite series, so we're actually going to start with that. Of course, that series is Fire Emblem. Nintendo recently had a direct where they talked about various releases in the Nintendo world, and the one that caught both our eyes is all the news surrounding the Fire Emblem series. Now, first, Arrow is going to touch upon a game that we consider to be vaporware for the longest time, and they came forth and finally breathed some new life to it. So, go for it, Arrow.
So yeah, we finally, in the last Nintendo Direct, We finally saw that Shin Megami Tensei Crossfire Emblem, which has been retitled into Genei Imbunroki Sharp Fire Emblem, which literally or something translates like Illusory Revelations Sharp Fire Emblem. It is a mind-blowing title, but I'm just calling it Sharp FE. Good luck typing that, by the way, on Facebook and stuff, because it will automatically hashtag everything. Very annoying. But it is Shin Megami Tensei versus Fire Emblem, and I think the general consensus, at least this is also how I feel a little bit more about it. At first, I was shocked. I could not believe what I was seeing. It looked very, very much different than what I had anticipated. As it is not really Shin Megami Tensei, it feels a little bit more on the Persona side and the light-hearted anime-esque high school character side. And also the trailer, it had some interesting, well, I would say, gameplay mechanics. A lot of people thought it was going to be more like an arena fighter, but I've been rewatching the trailer a couple of times, like 2 or 3 times, and pausing it, looking in depth at the screens. And actually, with the more I watched it, the more excited I became, because it does indeed look like a Persona-esque spin-off where Atlus is in full control and they are just integrating some of the Fire Emblem elements. Now, they already mentioned that they will talk a little bit more about the actual Fire Emblem inspirations at a later date. Of course, you did see the very... It seems like the characters are able to transform into Fire Emblem characters. So Pegasus Knights, there was this one girl who transformed into a Pegasus Knight, soaring through the skies in Shibuya and attacking these demons. And it also looks the way in these arenas where they're actually fighting, that they are attacking these these huge bosses, and that they are in Fire Emblem attire, probably something to do with classes. Which, it looks very interesting. There's also some dungeon exploration, some town exploration, and as usual, I am very excited to see Tokyo, and especially art style and characters, but all thrown in with the personas and the Cathedral of Shadows and just strategy RPG, what they do best. And I am a little bit disappointed that original vision did not come out, because this is also what I'm looking at the upcoming, say, Atlus library, and it is Persona 4 Dancing All Night, and it's Persona 5, and it is Illusory Revelations, which are all very charming and anime-esque. And then you have Etrian Odyssey 5 coming out. I'm all talking about the Japanese games, of course. But where is, and I know it came out in 2013, but where is a new, no, I'm not even counting Record Breaker, because that is also it's moving more towards anime, but where is my new, very dark, post-apocalyptic, I would say, Strange Journey, Digital Devil Saga, Shin Megami Tensei 4 game in the pipeline from Atlus? And so, like I mentioned, I was a little bit disappointed, but this is by far, my most anticipated Wii U game, and it's I have a feeling, because I have not played too many games on it, without even having played it, this will be my Wii U game of the system.
I will say this now. The big thing that will make Illusory Revelations succeed is if they, like Persona 4, they can take the light-hearted moments and meld them nicely with the dark moments, because that's why Persona 4 was perfect. You had this team come together because of this mass murder on the loose. So even though there was this light-hearted moments, they're stuck in this situation that is very grim. If they can deal with this in Illusory Revelations, they've got another hit on their hands.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's I think we'll have to wait and see. I think it's very ambitious from Atlus to release this in the winter 2015, which on the one hand bodes well for the release of Persona 5. If it doesn't get delayed, that means that it will come out. They can't release it in the same month in Japan, so it means that Persona 5 will come out maybe Q3, maybe September, October-ish, and then this will come out maybe January, February. So I know that different teams are working on it, but still, it's a big shot for Atlas. And I would say the final thing I would like to say is I don't think Intelligent Systems is actively working on this.
No, I'm going to lead into that right now.
Yeah, they have other things on their hands.
Yes, basically in the interview with Illusory Revelations is originally they were going to work together to create a project, but rumors saying that it didn't actually work out that well. I'm not too sure if this is fact, but along the way, Nintendo just decided to give Atlas free reign because Atlas pretty much said to Nintendo, if we wanted another strategy RPG Fire Emblem, it's best if just Intelligent Systems work on it. And they are, in the form of the next 3DS Fire Emblem game, Fire Emblem If. And I'm going to say this now. Ero's enthusiasm for Sharp FE as he says that he, from just watching the trailer, is thinking that that game is going to be his favorite on the Wii U. I have the exact same feeling for Fire Emblem If on the 3DS. I reckon this is going to be my favorite game on the handheld. This is Fire Emblem at its best. Agon is like fighting the undead, and now you've got a epic war against two kingdoms. And I really like the design of these two kingdoms. You've got the peace-loving samurai clan, the Hoshino, and then you've got kind of like the dark, sort of gritty Empire of Nor, and they're at each other. But in this piece of news that blew my mind is the fact that as the main character, you have to choose your allegiances. Now, originally, this is where it gets a bit... opinions differ, because on one hand, I'm really excited. On the other hand, it's kind of a cop-out. But today I actually found out that the game, in Japan at least, will be released in two separate versions, like the Pokemon series. Like, one version will be you aligning with the Hoshino clan, and the other version is going to be the Nor Empire. So you've got the White Kingdom version and the Black Kingdom version. Now, I'm going to say this now. As someone who loves, gets joy from collecting Fire Emblem stuff, Nintendo just gave me two games at once. And I saw the cover art today. Oh my god, they are beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
So, the Fire Emblem collector in me is extremely happy. The gamer in me, however, is taking this stance, and this is what I'm going to say. If both versions are not that different, then it's a waste of money. If they are extraordinarily different and it becomes two different games, then that's Nintendo giving you two Fire Emblem games at once. How awesome is that? Now, I actually got the news today that up until Chapter 6, yes, both versions will be the same. Once you get to Chapter 6, that's when the paths will diverge.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I didn't know you were already aware of that, but I read that as well, that, the game will play out. It's kind of typical if our Fire Emblem. It's basically, getting through the tutorial, getting through the prologue, setting up the world. And from what I believe I've heard is that you are playing as this Hoshino, it's Hoshino.
Yes.
You're playing as this originally born in Hoshino, but you're either spirited away, kidnapped for some reason, and you live now in the Nor Empire. And then everything comes down, and you see in the trailer already, you see these two warring nations, like the main characters from each group, saying, no, you got to choose us, you got to choose for us. And that's when Chapter 6 happens, I think.
Well, as a fan of samurai culture at a very young age, I can tell you this now. In the wars in medieval Japan, to have alliances, samurai lords would give their children as tribute, and to make sure that there's peace between the clans. And whoever was the most powerful, they would give their sons to the other lord if he was more powerful, because they think that he would have a much better standing. And I think that's exactly what's happened here. The Hoshino must have done a deal with them, and they gave their son or daughter, depending on who you choose. I know there's a big thing that Ero's excited for.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So this is I'm excited, and I'm a big Fire Emblem fan, and I know a lot of Fire Emblem fans that are really iffy, because one, a lot of people like the Lord characters have always been a very prominent